Welcome to this episode of Eureka. This is a Shanti Sarup Bhatnagar Award special episode. In this episode, we are going to have a very wonderful conversation with Dr. Ritish Agarwal. He is with Postgraduate Research Institute, PGI for short, Chandigarh. Their group has been working on a rare disease, but having a greater impact on India, called as allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. It's a look like asthma, but slightly different. In this episode, we will have a conversation with him about this disease and what they found. Sir, thank you for joining us in this show. It's a wonderful opportunity. First, let's congratulate you for this award. I'm sure we are all very proud of you and then eagerly look forward to this conversation with you. And please accept our greetings for this award.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So let me start with some of the fundamentals of your research work. I mean, your citation. Let me read the citation actually prepared by the award committee for while giving you this, bestowing this award on you. It says, Dr. Ritish Agarwal has made outstanding contribution in the field of allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, which is like ABPA. That's how it's shortened. And your research has showed that lower doses of glucocorticoids are sufficient, though through well-controlled randomized control trials, you have shown that new ways of treating this rare disease. So that's what your citation says. So let me start with this fundamental question that what is this disease? What causes this disease?
Basically, allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, if you see the name itself, it has three components: allergic, bronchopulmonary, and aspergillosis.
Yeah.
So it's an allergic disease. So we have other allergic diseases like bronchial asthma, rhinitis, allergic rhinitis, where the patient sneezes a lot when exposed to dust, etc. So that is one component. So allergy, bronchopulmonary. So bronchopulmonary means the bronchus is the airways and pulmonary is the lung. So it affects the airways and the lungs. And aspergillosis. So aspergillosis is a disease caused by a fungi called Aspergillus fumigatus.
Okay.
So it's a ubiquitous. So it's a worldwide seen fungus. So it's basically a fungus which is seen on. If you keep bread for some time, you'll see some fungus growing on that.
Yeah. So yeah. So something like a green mold that.
Yeah. So it's a mold basically. I think that's the right word. It's a mold. So what happens is it's a microscopic structure. This Aspergillus fumigatus. So it exists in a thread-like structure called hyphae.
Okay.
So that's a technical term, hyphae. And a group of hyphae form a mesh together to form what is known as a mycelium. And that produces some microscopic structures called spores. Spores are very tiny microscopic structures. So they are so lightweight that a small wind can, make them airborne.
Okay.
So the patient inhales that spores, and that spores of Aspergillus fumigatus enters the lung, and that causes the allergy. So that's how we decode allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis.
Okay. So you are talking about this particular fungi. I mean, you said that it is ubiquitous, meaning that it's found all over the world, or in certain regions they are more, and in certain regions they are kind of less. What is it spread all over the world?
Yeah. So as it is, as I said, it's a ubiquitous fungi. So it is found all over the world. But places where there is more damp, humidity, so there's a predominance. So if you have decaying organic matter in plenty, like hay, compost, etc., so you will have a predominance of that fungus. It is found inside households if you have dampness. So if you have damp walls, you'll see some black thing on the wall.
Yeah,
so these are all Aspergillus fumigatus.
I see. Okay. And obviously it's a very microscopic living organism,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
so how small it would be? I mean, like,
It's about
is there a way?
2 to 3 microns.
2 to 3 micron, that's all. Huh? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
And
But
the structure, interestingly, the Aspergillus fumigatus, that 2 to 3 microns is in the perfect breathing range. So if you have if you have structures which are more than say 10 or 15 microns, your nose will block. But if it's small, it exactly enters the lung, and it is perfect for that way entering the lung.
I see, I see. Most of this, diseases which are caused by respiration, you need to have that object size less than that
Absolutely.
10 to 15 micron,
Yes.
right?
So
I mean,
in medical terms, we call it the mass median aerodynamic diameter. So mass median 50%, aerodynamic. So the dynamic in the air is that. So the diameter exactly enters into the lung.
Okay. So because you said that this ubiquitous, so which also means that quite a large number of people would be affected by this, right? I mean, what will be the numbers like? If you look at in India, what will be the numbers? World over, what is the number?
So not all patients who are exposed to the fungi will develop disease. So it all depends on your host immunity. So if you have a normal host, it enters into the lung. The blood defense mechanisms. We have certain small cells in the body called neutrophils, macrophages. So they are basically first line of defense against any insult to the lung. So they will tend to act against this spores and fungi, and they will eliminate it.
I see.
So there are patients who are having asthma, who have other disorders called cystic fibrosis, and other disorders like chronic obstructive lung disease. So these are the patients who are prone to develop allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis. So what happens? They have increased respiratory secretions. So once there is increased respiratory secretions, this fungus gets trapped into that secretions, and it rather than expelling that fungus out, it stays into the lung because of the secretions.
I see. I see. So it gets a good condition for thriving inside the lung.
Yes. So it gets a better survival conditions, and it grows there. So
otherwise, most of the people when we sneeze or when we cough, I mean, this thing comes out and then is expelled. But whereas because they get trapped inside those liquids, I mean, they stay inside these people, right?
Yes. Yes. That is the currently believed hypothesis.
That's a mechanism. What would be the number of people who are affected by this?
So what we did was previously this condition was not widely recognized because it presents just like asthma. So people used to just treat asthma. The patient will keep worsening. Patient will receive steroid and so on, but the disease won't be treated. So systematically, we first at our center, our group, we first looked at the prevalence at our center. So we found that almost 25% of patients with bronchial asthma were suffering from allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis.
I see. Okay. So almost 1/4 of asthma patients are suffering from this.
No, but that is because we are a referral center, we are a tertiary care center. So that number obviously will be higher if you see at PGI. So what we did, we looked at data from other centers, and then we found that the average prevalence is about 5%.
I see.
So 5% of asthmatics will can suffer from allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis.
I mean,
if we estimate the number of asthmatics in India, and if we see this, we'll have at least 20 to 25 lakh patients.
20 to 25 lakh. I mean, that's a really huge number.
That's a huge number.
Yeah. I mean, all over the world, then it should be also even much larger, right? I mean,
in the world also, unfortunately, in India, the prevalence of this disease is higher. So, world over, the prevalence is 2.5%.
I see. Okay.
In India, it is almost double.
What could be the reason why it is large in India? I mean,
one I think is our weather conditions. We are more of a humid. We have significant proportion of our time with humid weather. Farming is a very common occupation here, and plus, what we are conducting research now that it is possible that we are genetically also prone to develop this. So these are the three things which are the current working substrates for research.
I see. Okay. That's an interesting thing. This is where we will take a very short break, and after the break, we'll continue this conversation.
Sure.
Keep watching Eureka. It's a very interesting conversation. It's one of the rare disease or other not well recognized disease, but is affecting huge population. And our guest today, Dr. Ritish Agarwal, has been one of the forefront researcher in this area. Keep watching Eureka. After the break, we are going to talk about what kind of research they have done to cure this patient. We'll take a very short break.
Which article of the Constitution lays down qualifications for the membership of Rajya Sabha? The options are A. Article 84, B. Article 36, C. Article 24, and D. Article 62. See the correct answer tonight at 9:30 p.m. only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back to Eureka. We are having a very wonderful, very exciting conversation with Dr. Ritish Agarwal, and their group has been working on a disease called as allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis, which is caused by a bacteria, a microorganism fungi, which appears like asthma, but is not treatable by usual asthma treatment. That's what we have been discussing earlier. Let's move forward. I want to ask you one question now when you are describing that how this fungi is affecting human population and how it is slightly more in India as compared to other world population and so on. What happens to people who get this disease?
So it mainly affects people with asthma, bronchial asthma. So patients with bronchial asthma, they present with breathlessness, cough, and tightness of chest. So that is the three main complaints where patients with bronchial asthma present to their doctors. So what this fungus does is, because it enters into the lung, it starts what we call as medically inflammation. Inflammation is the fungus fungus starts growing inside the lung. So it's a foreign object. Okay. So the body's immunity tries to take care of it. Unfortunately, the immune system is not able to clear the fungi in patients with bronchial asthma.
Okay.
So the immune becomes more and more active.
I see.
In a tendency to clear the fungi. So the body tends to harm itself because of the overactivity against the fungi.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So because this immune system is overreacting, it's creating more so-called frontline warriors. Not only it affects the fungi, but also affects our own normal.
Absolutely. So it does that. So what happens is there is more inflammation because of that. Inflammation is basically the tendency of the body to act against a foreign object.
Yeah.
So that inflammation is now counterproductive to the body. So what it does in patients with bronchial asthma, because there is more inflammation in the lungs, the symptoms of cough, breathlessness, tightness of the chest becomes more aggravated.
I see.
So the patients think that it is because of the worsening bronchial asthma. So they start increasing the doses of their inhalers, which is the common medicine which is used.
Yeah.
They go to their doctors. If the doctor is not sensitized towards this rare disorder, he or she also thinks that yes, the asthma is getting worse. So they hike up the dose of their inhaled medicines. They add some other medicines. But the inflammation is going because we are not targeting the aspergillus.
Yeah.
And the patient has a worsening asthma. So he has limitation of his activity. His social and occupational functioning comes down.
Okay.
He has attacks during the night, so he's not able to sleep well. In children, it causes absenteeism from schools.
Okay.
So it causes a lot of burden on the patient as well as in the family.
Okay. So if you compare, for example, somebody who has asthma, but and somebody who has this aspergillosis, how different their life impact would be? I mean, we know a lot of people who are managing their asthma because many of those do not have complete cure, but you can only do management. So compared to that and this, how different would be the life impact? I mean, your daily life.
So their daily life is quite impacted because one is their doses of the medicines increase, so they develop some, because once you reach the maximum doses of the medicines, they'll have some side effects because of the medicines. Plus the disorder is not controlled, so they'll have limitation in their activity. So that way their quality of life becomes quite bad compared to a simple asthmatic.
Okay. Even simple asthmatic is
Having a lot of problems. Yes, if they
yeah.
they're not treated properly, they have a lot of problems. So this is compounded by the fungi.
Okay. So continuing this, I want to ask you this question: that how do you know that this particular person has aspergillosis and not a simple asthma?
Yeah. So that was our first part of the research, interestingly. So what we thought was, let's identify the fungi before it causes damage.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we did was we adopted what is known as a universal screening protocol. So all patients with asthma who came to us, we did a simple blood test. So it is not a very painful. You take 1 ml of blood and we measure the IgE. IgE is an antibody, basically. So the human body produces antibody to counteract the fungi. So that IgE against Aspergillus fumigatus. So it's a very simple test. So we do it routinely in all patients with bronchial asthma. So if that is raised, we know that this patient is allergic to Aspergillus.
So just 1 second here. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. Like for example, for each and every specific pathogen that affects us, our body produces a very specific antibody, right? So that's how we can know that this particular disease is caused by this particular pathogen. Something like, say, for example, for every single nut, you have a particular spanner. Only that can fit. You know, it's something very similar, right?
Absolutely. So that is exactly the function of the antibody. So the antibody is basically a spanner.
Yeah.
The Aspergillus is basically the nut. So the antibody will fit exactly into the Aspergillus. Yes, absolutely.
So you try with various spanners and then see whether this particular spanner fits. Then you know that nut should be this particular pathogen, right?
Absolutely. So,
but before even knowing that it's Aspergillus, how do we find out that is what it is? You know, I mean, once you find out, then you can create a test where you try this spanner. But then in the initial part, how do you even find out that it's by a new?
So we know the susceptible population, bronchial asthma.
Okay.
So we have the susceptible population. So we know that these patients are going to be afflicted. So we screen those patients. So we have patients who are being managed at the primary health center, at the secondary health center, and the tertiary health center. So the primary health center, if they are not having any problem, they will remain at the primary health center. But if the patient has problems, he moves to the secondary and the tertiary. So what our research, we showed that if the patient comes at a secondary or a tertiary health center, then the prevalence of allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillosis is very high in patients with bronchial asthma.
Okay.
So if the patient is in a secondary or tertiary tier of healthcare, it is better to screen the patient with bronchial asthma universally rather than depend on the symptoms alone.
Okay. So one of the important aspect of your research is that now it would be wiser to do a universal screening when people
at the secondary and tertiary levels of healthcare. Certainly, sir. Yes.
Okay. So one of the area that your citation talks about is that your randomized control study on a drug. So can you elaborate us?
So randomized control trials are the quintessential tools of clinical drug trials. So what we do is, in a randomized control trial, we randomize. So it is by chance that the patient is going to fall in arms of the trial. So we have arms of a trial. So we had one arm of in this ABPA trial, we had one arm where we were giving high doses of steroids, and another arm where we were giving low doses of steroids. So our experimental arm was the low doses, and the control arm was the high doses. So this is a random. By random, the patient would fall into one of the arms. So we performed a randomized control trial because our search of literature and our referral of patients, we found the patients were treated with varying doses of steroids. Some were treated with high doses, some with low doses. So we really didn't know. At our center, we used to give higher doses. So we were not clear whether higher doses are good or lower doses are good. So we thought the best way to resolve this controversy is to perform a randomized control trial. So we performed a randomized control trial where the patient received either the high dose or the low dose of steroid. And interestingly, we found that the low dose was as effective as the high dose
Okay.
in most
You
patients.
are not needed to be given that kind of a high amount of.
So high doses.
When you say high and low, in terms of quantity, what would be the kind of difference?
So the higher doses were something like 40 milligrams of prednisolone for 4 weeks, then 30 milligrams for 4 weeks, and 20. Here it was 30 milligrams for 2 weeks, then 30 milligrams alternate day for 6 weeks. So the dose was almost less than 50% of the high dose.
Okay, okay. How does this drug work in our body? I mean, what does it actually do? I mean, what is this drug? I mean, even if you are not going to say the full name, I mean, but like, what does this drug do? How does it work in our body?
So glucocorticoid colloquially is known as steroid. I think everybody knows steroid. Everybody is afraid of steroid actually, you know. If you say steroid, most patients are scared. Doctors are also scared because it's a double-edged kind of a drug. So it benefits the patient if where it is required. But if you don't give the drug in judicious quantity or for judicious duration, it can also harm the patient.
Okay.
So this steroids, what it does is it blocks the body's immunity. So it's an anti-inflammatory drug. So it blocks the inflammation. So by decreasing the inflammation, so what has happened inside, aspergillus has come. The body's immunity is trying to act against the aspergillus. It has not controlled the fungus, but the inflammation has spread because of hyperactivity of the immune system.
Okay.
So the steroids will go and decrease the activity of the immune system.
So see,
by blunting the effect of the immune system and allowing the patient's body's immunity to clear the fungi.
See, suppose if we kind of reduce our immune response, would it not also have other impacts? Like, for example, maybe you will be impacted with other pathogens and so on?
Absolutely. See, that risk is always there with steroid. That steroid can always increase the risk of infection if not given for adequate, not given for judicious, if not given in judicious quantity or for a particular duration. So that risk is always there.
That's where your reduced dosage becomes a very important place,
so
right?
That was a very important message for us, a learning point for us too, that the lower dose is as effective as a higher dose.
Okay. Also, I mean, one of your citations says that you also found a particular drug is more useful. What do you can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So if you look at the way the disease is caused, the fungus enters the body. So you have the fungus there, you have the immune system. So one way of targeting treatment is by blocking the immune system.
Okay.
The other way is to remove the fungus itself. So that was our second part of the our treatment studies. So what we did was, previously patients used to get steroids. If they didn't respond or if they develop side effects, they would be given antifungal drugs.
Okay.
So what we thought, why not give the patient upfront? Give them, instead of steroid, give them just antifungal drug.
Okay.
We were not sure because the pathogenesis, or what the current understanding was, that this is an inflammatory disease. So you just have to block the inflammation. So you block the inflammation and the patient will be all right. And we had evidence because steroids were working.
Okay.
But we had no evidence whether this antifungal drugs would work.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was the next part of our randomized control trial. So what we did,
that also you did a second randomized control trial, right?
So in the second randomized trial, what we did, we randomized patient to receive steroids in one arm and itraconazole. Itraconazole is an antifungal drug. So itraconazole in the second arm. So we had steroid in one arm and antifungal drug in another arm.
I see.
And the antifungal drug arm had no steroid whatsoever.
Okay. But still you are able to get a good response.
Yeah.
From,
so what we found was steroids were better. No doubt, because steroids are profound anti-inflammatory drugs. They were better compared to. So if you see numerically, steroids were effective in 100% of the patient, but antifungal drugs were also effective in 88% of patients.
I see.
So what we thought was, if 88% of the patients can be treated with antifungal, and they need not be exposed to steroid, that's a very good choice for the patient.
I see. Okay. That's a very interesting research that you have done about an area where very few people apparently in the world are working, right? I mean, one of the very few groups in India, and also internationally working on this area. So what is your take on this, that why very small number of people are working on this area?
One is the interest, obviously, because the interest has to be there. Plus, it's not that big disease, So most researchers will enter into a disease where it's big, where you get more funding and so on and so forth. That is one part. The other thing is the patients are not recognized, so it's thought that this disease is not there.
Okay.
So there's a very famous English quote: "Look and ye shall find." So if you don't look for the disease, you will not be able to find this disease. So world over, it was thought that this disease does not occur. So we have our group. There's a very big group which works on Aspergillus, South Manchester University.
Okay.
So their group is also working on this disease. So that group is also very active. So we also collaborated with them, and we have given the figures for aspergillosis for India. That group has given figures for aspergillosis for their. So we found that aspergillosis is a very prevalent condition.
Yeah.
So now it is likely that more and more groups will become active because now we have shown that the disease is there.
Mm-hmm.
We have shown treatments work. So when I started research in ABPA, very few doctors would refer patients because nobody was identified. So most patients we would identify at our center. Now that scenario has completely changed. So at least in Punjab, Haryana, and our surrounding our institute, there's a very wide recognition of this disorder. So we have patients who are referred only if they are not being able to tackle by their physicians.
I see.
So that's a very good thing. Patients are being diagnosed early. So I think that's a very good thing our group's research has done.
See, most people think that hospital basically only treats a patient from existing knowledge. But here, for example, in your case and PGI, very clearly we are seeing that new research, new insights into what causes disease and how you treatment protocols, all these things are also developed within this kind of hospital. Most people are not aware about it. Can you just tell us how does this system actually work?
So the PGI is a unique institute. We have only postgraduate doctors here. Yeah. So our institute mandate is to create trainers. So we bring out doctors who are able to become next line of researchers. So research is primarily built into our, so we are Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research. So that is our mandate also. So we train our postgraduates and super specialists not only to treat patients, but also to conduct research. So that is our mandate. And for us, every problem we approach in a research point of view. So we try to have that bent of mind also, both in our students as well as our faculty are obviously have that kind of thing. So our patients are always, we explain to the patients that this is a rare disease. We are going to do some research on you. And most patients, you'll be surprised that most patients are actually willing for research because, they know that the institute has been doing good work. So they actually volunteer. It is very surprising because other centers, I've heard that the patients are not willing. Here they're different. Patients come and volunteer. So patients come and say, Dr. Ritesh, we have read your research. We also want to volunteer. Is it possible for us? So we take their phone numbers and we call them and they are most willing to come.
Very, very, very interesting and very important stuff. And I'm told that you are the first researcher to be awarded with this SSB award, Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award, India's most coveted science award in your institute. So what did you feel when you came to know that you have been given this award?
It was an exhilarating feeling. You feel happy. You have been working in a particular area, and you get an award, which is a big award like Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. You are really happy, and it's a big boost for the group. See, and it's not my award. Whenever you get an award, please understand that it's the big group which is working behind. Yeah. So I am the face of that group. That's all I can say. So our group, we have been working now we started our first research paper in this area came in 2006. So we have started working from 2004. Now it's 17 years So you're working for 17 years in a particular area, and this award, it is going to take us now through for next 2 decades. So you have that zeal to work in that particular area.
Very nice, and thank you for being with us in the show. And once again, please accept our congratulations for this award. And very clearly, your case also shows that there are diseases which are more prevalent in India compared to other places for various reasons, and then it is important for Indian researchers to work on them to give a better quality of life to Indians. And for that, I should thank you and thank your group for engaging in this research. For want of time, we may have to conclude here our conversation. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come back with another conversation next time, same week.